Awesome. Let's jump into that because I think that's probably
Mm,
what people are thinking. They're thinking, okay, we have like this
mm,
wide array of different structures, and if I eat fat, I'm likely, like you
yeah,
said before, getting lots of different exposures to that. But then the next question, the follow-up question is, what does it actually mean? What are some of
yeah,
maybe the health impacts of,
yeah,
say,
yeah,
consuming an omega-6 versus an omega-3, or
yeah.
how are like cell behavior influence or cell
Yes.
membrane
Yeah.
changes and
Yeah. Yeah.
consequences?
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Okay. So we have to now start thinking about diet in the context of this complexity of fatty acid classifications. So any food we eat will contain many types of fatty acids, although they will be there in different amounts. So particular foods will be much richer in some types of fatty acid than others. So I think a prime example of this is a lot of seed oils. So things like sunflower seed oil, safflower oil, uh, corn or maize oil. Those oils all contain a lot of the omega 6 polyunsaturated fatty acid, linoleic acid. So, a person who's consuming a lot of those oils, either as oils or using them in foods or in cooking, and of course, there are some foods made from those oils, like many margarines, for example. So a person with a diet rich in those foods will be consuming a lot of linoleic acid. Conversely, a person consuming low amounts of those foods will be consuming less linoleic acid and probably more of another fatty acid. That might be more saturated fatty acids, because often we exchange foods that are rich in saturated fatty acids for foods that are rich in these omega 6 polyunsaturated fatty acids. So I think this would be, for example, butter is an animal fat, contains quite a lot of saturated fat. Margarines, mostly made from seed oils, contain a lot of linoleic acid, the omega 6 polyunsaturated fatty acid. So people can be making either conscious or unconscious dietary choices that have a big impact on their intake of these different types of fatty acids. So, why is this important from our physiology and from our health point of view? So, fatty acids are not inert when we eat them. They actually do stuff inside our body. They are biologically active and they work in lots of different ways in the body, um, essentially controlling how the cells in our body are functioning. So, they control our metabolism. A good example is the production of cholesterol. So the liver is the main site in the body where cholesterol is made. And what's really interesting is most of the cholesterol in our blood is actually made in our body in the liver. It's not coming from our diet. So what we call endogenous synthesis of cholesterol produces more cholesterol than we're actually eating. Now, saturated fatty acids increase the cholesterol production in our liver. Linoleic acid actually helps remove cholesterol from the blood and put it out of the body in bile. So, saturated fatty acids and linoleic acid can have opposing actions, the opposite effects on our blood cholesterol levels. So, saturated fatty acids can increase blood cholesterol because they help the liver make cholesterol, whereas linoleic acid lowers cholesterol because it helps the liver remove cholesterol from the bloodstream. So that's a good example of how two different types of fatty acids actually have the opposite action. And those two fatty acids are acting to have those effects actually by controlling gene expression in liver cells. So those fatty acids are actually controlling the genes that the liver is using to control cholesterol metabolism. So that's a good example. And that's about controlling gene expression. But the other really important thing that fatty acids do in our body is they get into our cell membranes. Now, the membranes are sort of the envelope around the cells, and membranes are made of fat. They're made of a particular type of fat called phospholipid. And just like dietary fat, the membranes around our cells contain fatty acids in their structure. So, one of the main roles in the body of fatty acids is in cell membrane structure and function. Now, the different types of fatty acids I've mentioned so far: saturated fatty acids, monounsaturated, omega 6 polyunsaturated, omega 3 polyunsaturated. They have different structures, we've already said that, and the structures are related to their functions once they get into the cell membrane. So, in other words, membranes containing a lot of, for example, omega 3 fatty acids behave very differently from membranes containing a lot of omega 6 fatty acids. And what do I mean by membranes behaving differently? So, membranes are the way our cells are communicating with the outside environment. So, for example, cells of the liver, again, have to respond to hormones. Cells of muscle respond to hormones. Cells of the heart respond to electrical signals. Cells of the immune system respond to infectious signals. All of those signals are outside the cell, but the message is received by the cell membrane. And that message is sort of interpreted, and then the cell makes a decision on how it will behave in response to that signal. And what I'm suggesting to you is that connection between outside the cell, where the signal is, and what the cell is doing is controlled by the membrane fatty acid makeup. And membranes richer in certain types of fatty acids are causing cells to respond differently from membranes that are richer in other types of fatty acids. And here there's quite a distinction between the omega 6 and the omega 3 fatty acids, and they often have opposing actions at the cell membrane level.